And the fourth senior game of the weekend then is between Ferns and the Faythe Harriers, and it takes place in Belfield on Saturday afternoon. We'll go to Ed first on this one. What are your initial thoughts, Ed?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the match between Ferns and the Harriers last year, if you remember, in Belfield. I think the Harriers were 8 points up at one stage, and about 10 minutes to go they were still ahead, but Ferns pulled away in the end. And Ferns have since proved that they were a good team too. You know, they almost beat the Martins in the semi-final. They've a lot of good hurlers, but you know, the Derek McGrath factor will bring a bit to the Harriers, and as I keep saying on this, you know, the Harriers in Belfield are a different animal altogether for some reason, and I expect the Harriers to put up to them.
Paul, what do you think initially about this game then?
Well, from the start, I'm kind of tipping. I think Ferns will be the team that will just make great strides this year, and I'd be disappointed for them, and I said they'd be equally disappointed if they don't make it to a final this year. They came on a lot last year. I had a look at. I think they've had either 5 or 6 different counting or 20s, just say for the last 2 or 3 years. They got Diarmuid Doyle from Marshallstown this year. I'm fairly sure they have any. I think he played last week in a practice match or something. He's already gone on fierce well. So. Like from where they were 3 or 4 years ago, where people thought that maybe they were finished, all of a sudden they have a huge injection of youth that have really spurred this team on. And then, sure, of course, you can name their names: Marine Byrne, Paul Morris, Benny Jordan. You can go on and on. But realistically, their squad now is really, really strong. And I think it's battle hardened as well for the older fellas, that they're going to give this one a real lash. Like what you were saying, the Harriers always kind of put it up to them. They definitely do. But I just think that up front, if Derek McGrath goes with his sweeper system, which people are expecting is going to happen, they'll have 5 forwards as normal, and I just don't see if they have 5 forwards where they're going to get the scores from to be able to beat a Ferns team that basically nearly all their 6. I say they're going to play. They might have an exact sweeper, but their forward line seems to be a lot more in tune with what's needed if they are playing 5 than maybe what the Harriers 5 will be. And if it goes to any sort of a shootout at all, I just think Ferns will have the forwards and the firepower to actually to beat the Harriers. And as well as that, the Harriers maybe they're going to put a lot of youth into the team this year, like 18, 19-year-old youth, which is maybe too young to make a serious impact on us. Like I was trying to remember coming up here today, like the last 2 really big impact 18-year-olds that I've seen. I think Rory O'Connor and I remember Ian Byrne destroying Buffers Alley in Exeter Park a couple of years ago. But it's so hard for an 18-year-old to come up and actually to do that kind of in your first match, no matter how good last year's to say the Harriers minors were. They're still only 18, and I think that the Ferns backs, as I said, on about experienced 20 senior players, that they'll be able to cope with whatever the Harriers throw at them. Now, of course, if always a lead-in factor, like you can nearly guarantee he's going to get maybe 10, 11 points, probably 4 or 5 in play. But generally, do they have enough on top of him to beat Ferns? And at the moment, I don't think they do, and I think Ferns will win it probably by 4 or 5.
Paul just made an interesting point there, Ed, in terms of the age profile of the players. Although both sets of teams have quite young players, the Harriers young lads are 18, 19, whereas the Ferns young lads are sort of 21, 22. They're a little bit more experienced.
That is true, you know, and what Paul is saying is right. Maybe 3 years ago we thought this was the end of a very good Ferns team, but the 5 players that have played County Under 20 last year have been a huge boost to them. You know, young Niall Murphy, Owen Murphy, the 2 Scallons, they're very good hurlers. Lawler in the goal, Chris Turner. So there's 6 I'm after naming out that have made a huge impact for him. But I still think Lee Chin is such a good hurler. I think he's able to keep the Harriers in games. And you know, if he gets 10 or 12 points, I think he'll need very little to go with that to get close, you know. And I think the Harriers do have some very good players like Clancy, and Cormac Byrne is cornerback is a player that impresses me all the time, you know. So I think it'll be a lot closer than what people think now.
And the Faythe Harriers, Paul, have been down, I suppose, in the lower ends. They've been in a couple of relegation finals and they haven't qualified for semi-finals in a few years now. What difference do you think Derek McGrath will bring to the table in terms of that?
I suppose first of all, he's going to bring maybe a know-how of maybe how to win championship matches, right? And maybe a 3-group system is going to help Derek, because it's kind of easier, I think, coming in as a new fella to really have fellas up for 2 or 3 matches. But over a longer scheme of things, if they had to play 5 matches and things maybe went wrong in the first or second one, it's like, is he really suiting us? But I think regardless of maybe their first result, they're still going to believe in him 100%. That like he's a very experienced, well-thought coach coming in, and there's along with I think David Mooney, Sack, and a few others. There are plenty of big names from within the club in there as well. So he's going to give him an organisation. He's going to give him a belief that maybe, now you can't say they didn't have it before, but they'll definitely have it with him, and they'll have it in spades. And realistically, it's hard to beat organisation and every player in the field knowing what's expected of them, and what they're expected to do. And he's definitely going to bring that. So as well as that, maybe it's like anything though. If Lee Chin is kind of anyway held, I said organisation or not, I just don't see him having what's up front capable of beating Ferns. Now, as I said, he mightn't be held, he might get 10 or 11, but I just don't see. Ed was saying they might need too much more. They're still probably going to have to get another 1-4, 1-5 play. I was at a match last year against Faythe, and I think nobody from the Harriers scored after 55 minutes except Lee Chin. And that was against Faythe in the it could have been the first or second round.
First round.
And I was thinking, geez, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Now, have their forward line improved so much that we're expecting maybe to get 1-6, 1-7 from play? I just don't think they have so far. Now, maybe give Derek McGrath another year or two, maybe, but it's just come on him too quick, I think, to make that transition into being a good senior team in his first year.
So you're going with Ferns by?
I'm going Ferns by 5 or 6.
And you're going?
I still think Ferns will win it, but I really do believe the Harriers will put it up to them. And if I was to give me an exact prediction, I think Ferns will win it by 3 points, but don't rule out the Harriers in Belfield.
And I'm going to go for a very tight game as well, but I think there's something about the Harriers last year. I think they improved very much towards the end of the year and got themselves organised. I might just go with them by a point.